I'm Robert, and in today's video, I'm going to take this image of Laguna Beach from here to here, all in Lightroom. In this video, I'm going to use Lightroom's brush tool with the range mask, as well as the radial circle tool to have some fun with the clouds and the sky. Let's get started with our base edit. Scroll down to the bottom. Let's make sure we're on the current version. We're not going to add a vignette to this image. Press on Constrain Crop. Zoom in on the horizon. Let's make sure it's straight. Actually, it's perfectly straight, so let's move on. One of the key features of this image is this house up here. It's slightly leaning, so let's use the vertical tool to fix that. That's all it takes. We'll go to -5. Now we have some vertical lines in that house. Is it just me, or does this kind of look like a face right here? Let's just move on up. Remove chromatic aberrations and enable profile corrections. I shot this on a Canon 40D with a Tokina 11-16. I was using a 3-stop soft edge graduated neutral density filter. We're going to skip over the color section, but first we're going to do some sharpening. We'll do our standard sharpening of 100 and applying a mask. Hold down the Alt key. We want to sharpen everywhere except the sky. If you sharpen the sky, you're just going to be adding more grain. All right, let's continue on to the basic panel. This image is quite warm, so I'm going to bring the temperature down a bit. That's a good starting point. Now let's open the dynamic range up. Highlights down, shadows up. That's too much shadows, so we'll back it down until it looks good. This image, we're only going to use +10 on the shadows. Let's finish working on our exposure. You can see we have room on the right and the left of the histogram to move our sliders a bit. So we'll bring our white slider up. Now we're clipping, so let's bring it back down a little bit. That's a good spot. And we'll do the same with the black slider. So then we have a nice exposure and our contrast is set. I'm not going to add any extra contrast using the contrast slider. You usually don't see me using these two sliders, texture and clarity, because it applies the settings to the entire image. If I'm going to apply texture or clarity, I'll use the brush tool and just put it in specific spots. So let's go down to our HSL panel. We're going to click on luminance. I'm going to darken up orange and yellow. Then we're going to add saturation to those colors also. I usually do all my work on the sky in the HSL panel, but this time we have so many different colors in the sky, I'm going to show you a different technique. So there's several steps to working on the sky. First step, let's grab our grad tool. Pull it down over the sky, hold down Shift to make it straight, and let's press O for overlay. Everywhere that's red is going to be affected by our changes we make. In this mask, I only want to affect the blue areas of the sky. So let me show you how we do that. Go down to Range Mask, click on Color, then grab the eyedropper. We're going to choose a blue color in the sky, right there. We can press O to turn the overlay back on, and you can see it's selected most of the sky. We can fine tune it with the mask here. If we bring it down, it only affects a certain area of blue. We can bring it up a little bit to right about here. So everywhere that's in red is going to be affected. I'm going to turn off the mask. So let's make some changes here. First off, let's make the blue more blue by bringing the temperature down. Next, I'm going to darken the sky a little bit, just the blue areas. And finally, let's bring up the saturation in this area. So let's take a look at what we just did. Here's before. All the blue areas are quite washed out. After, we have a nice dark, deep blue sky. So next up, let's work on these pink clouds up top. We're going to do the same technique. Grab a grad tool and pull it down. Let's turn on our overlay. And we're going to go down to range mask, color, grab the eyedropper, and we're going to click on one of the clouds. So now you can see that we're only going to be affecting these purple pink areas in the sky. So let's turn off the mask. And to accentuate the color, I'm going to bring the tint up to make them a bit more pink and purple color. So we now worked on the top part of the sky, the blue areas and the pink areas. Next up, I want to work on this yellow area. We're going to use a little bit of a different tool here, the Radial circle tool. Place it over this orange area that we want to affect. We can drag it out this way a little bit. We can press O to check out our overlay. And let's do the same thing. We're going to go down, range mask, color, use the picker, click on somewhere that was yellow because I want to affect these areas. So now using the overlay, we can see we're affecting all of the orange and yellow areas, but we're not touching this blue area that we already adjusted. So let's turn off our mask here. This area is quite bright, so let's bring the exposure down, darken it up a little bit, and let's also bring the saturation up. That looks good. Let's turn off that mask and let's see what we did. So here's before, really bright, washed out, and after. Now we can see more details in the cloud and we have nice colors. The reason why there's pink in the clouds is because I was using a filter that had a strong color cast. It also put a color cast on this house. This house should be white, but it's not. So let's work on the house. Grab a brush tool. And let's brush in this house. Press O to turn on our overlay. We spilled over a little bit here. Just press Alt. It turns your brush into an eraser. So we have the house masked off. Press O to turn off our overlay. So the problem with this house is it's way too warm. So let's cool it down with the temperature slider. So it's closer to white, but there's still a strong cast of color on it. So let's just remove the color using saturation. That looks more natural now. Let's take a look at adding some exposure too. Just a little bit. If we go too bright, it looks a little weird. So we'll bring it down to 0.3. So let's click on a new brush. I want to bring out our foreground element, which are these muscles on the ground here. So let's paint in just this area. We don't have to be too precise. I don't want to spill over to the water here though, so I'm just going to erase this. And to accentuate this area, I'm simply just going to bring in some texture. And that's it. I always like to have a strong foreground element to capture your eye and then lead it through the image. So I want your eye to first look at the sharpest area of the image and then back towards the brightest area, which is the house and the sky. So this image is really weighted to the right side. We're kind of lacking on the left side. To help fix the balance, I can brighten up something on the left side. So let's grab a new brush. Let's paint in this water here, and we're going to brighten it up. That was easy. Press O, turn off our overlay, and let's cool it down just a little bit because there's some yellow in there. And we'll bring the exposure up. So if we go up to 1, it's just a little bit too much, so we'll back it down. 0.7 of a stop. So let me turn off all of our brush work so we can see what it looks like before. So here's before, no texture, dark, weird color cast. Turn it on. Now we have the bright water, sharp foreground, and fixed color cast, and brighter house. Let's take a look at what we did with all of our filters. So here's the sky before, kind of bland and washed out. After, darker and very saturated. And we played with the color cast caused by that filter. Sometimes I fix it, sometimes I just go with it. So I think this image turned out really good. It was pretty bland and didn't look like it was going to be fixable when we started, but it came out pretty good. Do you like the fun colors we put in the sky? It's not something I usually would do, but I wanted to try something different with this image. I really didn't think we'd be able to get it to this point. I think my favorite part was bringing out the water. That really made the image. If we didn't do that, I think it still would have been just kind of weird and bland looking. So I had a lot of fun playing around with the range mask. I hope you guys go and try it out. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks.